think that's all I had. This is all my contact information, the best ways to reach me. One thing I did want to say is, if anything's going on, like you know of some story going on that you want people to be aware of, or you think there's some news story or some personal question you have that you want to get answered, I do have this website and it does get a lot of readers. So if there's anything I can post up there for you that might help you out, please, please, please contact me. And if you go to the website, there's contact information there too. So I think that's all I had. Thanks again to Frank for bringing me here. And please, if you don't already, please come to the SSA meetings at RPI or go to the Capital District meetups here. I think that's it. I can answer your questions if you have any. Thanks so much. Are there any questions? About whatever.
I have an inappropriate question.
Go for it.
You mentioned you interviewed Ted Haggart's squeeze. The big question in everyone's mind is Ted Haggart, top or bottom?
So I did ask Mike Jones, is there any question that I didn't ask him, because I had like 3 pages of questions. And he said he was at an event where, coincidentally, Dan Savage had asked him, so tell us, Mike, Ted Haggart, shooter or dribbler? Oh. To which Mike Jones said, he was a dribbler, but he had his moments. I had no idea. I don't really want to know. But I gotta say, like, I've actually been in contact with Mike ever since this all happened. And very seriously, what he says is it's been really tough for him because he wrote that book, but he really didn't make a lot of money off this thing because that was never his goal. But he's had a really hard time getting a job, because not just because of the economy issues, but anytime he does get a job, whether it's like at a nursing home or something like that, even though his name is Mike Jones, which is not a very Googleable name, people find out who he is and they get rid of him. They fire him pretty quickly after that. So he's had a really rough time over the past couple of years trying to just get back on his feet and be independent again, because he stopped doing all the escorting stuff, but now that he's kind of on the straight and narrow, it seems like the story is still coming back to haunt him. So every now and then I'll hear from him, because Ted Haggart's wife just came out with a book like a month ago. So the Haggart family was back in the news. Nancy Pelosi's daughter, Alexandria, had a documentary on HBO about Ted Haggart. So it was back in the news then. And every time that happens, Mike Jones gets back in the news, and it's never anything good about him. So. Other questions? Yeah.
You haven't had any of your students ask you about this?
So some students have found out about the website, and if they ask about it, I really don't shut them down. Like, we're not talking about that. And I think they understand that. I'll tell you, like a couple things that have happened that, like in a bad way. My first year of teaching, which I'm sure anyone can tell you is probably the worst, I had a class of really rowdy students. And they were like, it's a low-level class, you know, they're not really into the math stuff. But I had a kid sitting in the back of the classroom, and I walk into class and he's like this, with my book. And he's doing this where he's just flipping pages, looking at me. And I'm like, put it away. He's like, what's wrong? Ashamed of your atheist book? Not now, put it away. And he did, and it kind of shut the door. I think people realize why I'm not talking about it. And you know, if they bring it up, because some of them will, because they'll find out about this stuff, I just shut them down. And it's not a big deal. They know why I'm shutting them down, and they know I'm not going to talk about it in class. So yeah, they find out. I mean, I have a first period class, which is when we say the Pledge of Allegiance. It's been 3 years, I've never said it. No one's questioned me on that. I don't know. So, you know, some strange things like that happens too, in a good way. So, I don't know.
One more question. Your experience of all this. To me, there's some element of happy accident in that it's been so positive for you.
Oh, I've had a lot of luck.
What comes to mind when you think about your own experience as compared to, for instance, my idea of the relation between atheists and nice Christians?
Like how to ally with them?
No, just why is there such a difference between what you've experienced and...
I think part of it is, you know, if you read those books by Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens and stuff, it's very anti-religion. I mean, they're making the case that religion of all forms is a really bad thing. There's some extent to which I agree with that, but that's not really the goal. Like, that's not what I want to accomplish. I think I'm much more interested in breaking down the stereotypes. I don't really care if someone's a Christian as much, unless they really want to make it like a political issue or something. My parents are religious, but again, they're not bad people, and I know what their values are. So it's like, so that doesn't bother me. And so one of the, actually I didn't even mention this, one of the good things that really came from this book is, in addition to speaking to groups like this, full of a lot of non-religious people, I've been invited to go to a lot of churches and speak. And not just like me talking like this, but to have a dialogue. I don't do debates, but a dialogue on stage with the pastor where it's unscripted, where we just kind of ask each other questions back and forth. Like, what are questions you might have about faith? Or, I'll give you one example. I went to one church where they said, we're having a whole series. This is, I think, when the Da Vinci Code movie was coming out. They had a whole series of sermons on, is it okay to doubt your faith? And they said, like, one of the week's sermons was, could Jesus have had a child? Because that's something they bring up in the Da Vinci Code. And they had a whole sermon on that. Well, the last weekend they said, is it okay to have doubts? And they wanted to bring me in to talk about this stuff. So we had a dialogue on stage, like, what do Christians do wrong? What do Christians do that scares atheists or that disturbs atheists? And they were open to the criticism. They wanted to hear it, and they wanted to know what they ought to be doing differently. Because again, I'm not going to be able to change their minds about religion, but what I can do is say, like, look, when you're trying to friend us, and you just see us as like atheists with a target on us, that's not very helpful. That's not a real friendship, things like that. They want to hear that. So that's been helpful. One of the cool things about that is they didn't want to do a Q&A because they were afraid that someone would just hijack the microphone for a long period of time. So they gave everyone note cards, and they said, if you want to write down a question to ask, you could write it down, and we'll have ushers pick them up and give them to the pastor. So he asked some good questions and stuff. As a thank you after I left, he gave me all the questions that they didn't ask on stage, which had questions like, why do you hate your father? But I mean, I'm still doing that to this day, where a lot of churches will say, let's talk about the stereotypes and where they go wrong and what we could do to communicate better and work together with each other. Because I think there's a lot of stuff that we agree on that we could still do, even despite the theological beliefs. My friend Ashley at Ohio State University, she runs a group there, the student SSA affiliate there. They actually cooperated with a Christian group on campus. Last week was their spring break. They headed down to New Orleans, Louisiana to do Katrina relief effort work with the Christian group, because the Christian group tends to get more money and they have more resources. So they went down with them to work together. Do they have to agree on like God? No, but the point is they agree on a lot more stuff and they want to help each other to do this stuff. That's awesome. I'd much rather promote that and focus on that than just trying to get people to think twice about their faith or really get people to lose their faith. That's not my primary concern. I think that's what helps. What's helped me with all this. I should also mention that's probably why the Christian publishers. I think I'm the only atheist to write for a Christian publisher that I know of. And I think the reason was they knew I wasn't just going to bash Christianity the entire book. Like, it's not because I think Christianity is okay, it's because that's not what my goal is. Yeah?
I was wondering, do you think that with the writing of textbooks such as in Texas, as there are a lot of people who are perhaps more concerned, I'm not quite sure what they're with that, do you think that's a sign that perhaps that evangelicals in particular, but the religious community is becoming a little bit more alarmed with this emergence of sort of more local atheism on the internet due to the way society is changing?
I didn't hear the middle part of that question. You said, so about the textbooks, do I think the religious right is?
It's sort of becoming afraid because more people are coming out as atheists in general. Do you think it's a response to fear or just?
Okay, so why are the religious right people like trying to change those textbooks so much? I think part of it has to do with they're really losing a lot of their power. And some of those school boards are some of the last places they really have control of things. And even the guy who's one of the guys who's the most conservative in the Texas court, he actually didn't get elected in the last election. So come November or whenever they replace him, he's going to be gone. But I think they're trying to jam whatever they can jam into those textbooks as much as possible now, because there'll come a time when they really, they're not as much of a laughingstock now as I wish they were. But I think it's getting to the point where people hear what they have to say, and they really see it as a joke. Like, really? These people are trying to do that to the textbooks? And really, there was a good public outcry about what they did in Texas. It doesn't mean it's changing the textbooks right then and there. They need a new board to do that. But I think people are getting fed up with it, and as more people learn about what they're doing, they're going to vote those people out of office as we get those efforts. So, yeah, it's a disturbing trend that they're starting in Texas, that they're doing in Texas. I don't think it's going to last that much longer, because I think people are coming to the realization, like, it's not like it's that or hardcore atheism. It's not like those are the two options. It's like a rational view of what you could have in these textbooks versus this crazy, extreme right-wing things that they want to put in there. So I don't think it's a trend, and I don't think it's going to happen too much longer, but there'll always be a case here and there.